As we move beyond the quarter mark of the season, I think it's fair that not only myself, but the majority of Panthers Nation has lost that optimism that we all felt just a few short weeks ago when this season began. Now, why is that? No, it's not because we're down on Bryce Young, but the majority of us have figured out that Frank Reich is an absolute fraud. So in this video, I'm going to detail why I fear my Carolina Panthers may have made the most detrimental decision that they have made in the entirety of the existence of this franchise, and we are going to get into all of that right after this.
I'm from the foe, you dig?
Welcome to The Way I See It with Jamario Rashad. This is a Carolina Panthers fan channel. Please do me a favor by hitting the like button, and please make sure you subscribe as I am on my road to 3K. Trying to make sure my channel continues to grow as my team get their ass whooped this season. Now that that's all out of the way, let's go ahead and get to this video. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Frank Reich has proven to be an absolute fraud. He has shown me absolutely nothing that would deserve me feeling encouraged or showing any type of objectiveness or objectivity towards what I've seen out there on the field. An L is an L, and those L's hang solely on the in front of Frank Reich. He is who I'm going to choose to place the blame or lay the blame of all of this at the feet of Frank Reich. Now, why am I so upset? What is Frank Reich doing that is pissing me off so much? Now, first of all, I have a philosophy that if you are a coach, whether it be little league, like majors, whether you're doing NFL, football, hockey, whatever it is, you are either an innovator or a motivator. Now, Frank Reich has proven these first 4 weeks that he is the furthest damn thing from a motivator. Frank Reich could not motivate a scared puppy down a flight of stairs with his monotone, just unenthusiastic ass speeches and excuses that he gives after each and every game. He does not sound motivated. None of these players sound as though that they are like really taking after what he is choosing to say. And I fear that he may be losing the locker room because he is giving these old Matt Rule ass answers and showing the same lack of accountability that we hated in Matt Rule. Just like when he was asked the question, how do you keep the locker room encouraged? How do you keep them from just tuning out the message that you're trying to convey to them after they start off 0-4? This guy wants to respond by saying, oh, that's not just a one-man job. That's not all on me. There are leaders and all of this on the team that admit. That's all bullshit. You are the head freaking coach and you are doing nothing. You are not an innovator and you're damn sure not a motivator. Now, sticking on that motivator point, this guy is the sole reason that running back coach, and I'm putting this, and if you didn't know, assistant head coach Deuce Staley was brought to the Carolina Panthers. I refuse to believe in any way, shape, form, or fashion that Deuce Staley is speaking to this team after these losses, before these losses, because there's no way that if you listen to that guy and you don't want to run through a brick wall, like I don't know like what's wrong with you. So for him to be the assistant head coach and to have the on the other side of the spectrum, Frank Reich and his monotone, non-motivational ass being the one that are giving the speeches, I find it hard to believe that Deuce Staley is having any impact on this on the team at all in terms of motivation, which is one of the things that I thought would excuse me, would be the greatest factors that he brought to the team. He's also brought here to be the running backs coach, but that's Miles Sanders has been absolutely ass. So I hate to say it, Frank Reich, his decision making, his lack of the implementation, or just turning over the reins of the motivational factors to Deuce Staley or whomever that this shit could be like handled better by, has just made me just I'm getting off the train. I'm not motivated by this. Frank Reich has continued to just be ass, and I honestly don't know what we are paying Jim Caldwell for. We are making, he is making Jim Caldwell look bad. As I said in my previous videos, we spent all off season just clapping it up and just giving kudos to Scott Fitterer and whomever else may made these decisions to bringing in these coaches to saying, oh, we have this much coaching experience, we have that much coaching. Who gives a damn if none of that shit is culminating in victories, especially if you are going to try to convince me that all of these older gentlemen, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say anything rude, that all of these older gentlemen that coached before I was born back in the 80s when all you did was play defense and run, these are the guys that are going to be innovating and helping to implement the offenses that are supposed to go against these new age defenses nowadays. It's no disrespect to Jim Caldwell, but like excuse me, things move on, time changes, things change, innovations happen, and you need to get younger blood in there. And I just don't see how or what Jim Caldwell is like actually doing in this situation. Now, just beyond the lack of Frank Reich being a motivational person, a person that just, he just like, I'm getting tired of hearing his annoying ass voice, because it sounds like it's just ringing as excuses every single word that I hear. Another thing that is pissing me and the rest of Panthers Nation off is this bullshit play calling that he consistently does, but more specifically, he only does when Bryce Young is in the game. Because if I was to show you the passer chart for the Andy Dalton game, I can guarantee you it did not look as pedestrian as what you're seeing on your screen right now. Now, what you're seeing are Bryce Young's passing attempts against the Vikings last Sunday. 16 of his 32 throws were behind the line of scrimmage. Those are basically freaking screenplays with the number 1 pick in the draft. And what does Frank Reich choose to do with those screenplays? Not use the majority of them to go to the Deebo Samuel, Cordero Patterson type player that you deem Laviska Shenault to be. No, he chooses to go to Adam Thielen, the slowest, oldest player on this offense, and expect for him to get yak yards when it is just usually a failure. He shows that he has no faith in Bryce Young whatsoever, because he didn't even allow him to throw the ball beyond 20 yards a single time in this game. It was dinks and dunks, check downs, and slant routes. He does not this play calling is just absolutely ass. And then another thing about it is, I am somebody that pays attention to most things, and one thing that I am noticing is when it comes to the workload of this offense, Frank Reich is giving the ball to where the money was spent this offseason. As I mentioned, he is forcing Adam Thielen to be the recipient of those screen passes. He is forcing Miles Sanders upon us, the Carolina Panthers Nation, and he is forcing him into the game, and he is choosing to continuously put him out there when he is not outplaying Chuba Hubbard, when he is not outplaying Laviska Shenault in his limited role as a running back. But because these are the guys that receive the money over the offseason, it shows me that they are prioritizing where the money was spent rather than the merit of who is best, who is most talented, who is most skilled. And that's not a way that you run a successful franchise, team, business, nothing, because that just shows an incompetence in a way, because you're just saying because this guy get paid, this guy is the best. That's not the truth. That's what you have training camp for. That's what you have practice for, and you are in charge, and you were supposed to make these decisions and have the discernment to say that this guy isn't better than this guy. But Frank Reich cannot seem to do that. Now, one thing that I want to talk about is, and another thing when it comes to this play calling that is just bothering me, has been bothering me, is going to continue to bother me, is the fact that whenever the idea of Thomas Brown calling the plays is even brought up, Frank Reich acts as if somebody looked him in the face and said, "Can I slap your grandma?" or something like that. He looks so freaking offended, and I just don't understand what is the purpose of having an offensive coordinator that comes from the Sean McVay tree at that, coming over to this offense, and you're not gonna allow him to call plays. I don't want to hear about collaboration. I don't want to hear, oh, we talk about this, No, let the offensive coordinator be the one with the clipboard and call the plays, but he refuses to do so. As I mentioned, he is Frank Reich is looking towards the mentorship of Jim Caldwell. He came into the NFL under the likes of a Tony Dungy. Yes, these are accomplished names, almost somewhat legendary names, but these are guys that coached in the early 2000s, even into the 90s. When when you look at a guy like Thomas Brown, he comes from the Sean McVay tree. And if and I have to make this point going back to the original point that I made, my philosophy of innovate. You either have to be an effective coach in today's NFL, you have to be an innovator or a motivator. You have your motivators. Who comes to mind immediately? Well, the poster child of that would have to be Mike Tomlin. What does he represent? Sustained success and never giving up, never having a losing season. Now, who's the other guy that comes to that? That's Dan Campbell, somebody that has endured the negativity, has had the bad seasons, but you have seen the progression of his teams year after year, and now he is coaching a team that is soon to be a juggernaut in the future. Now, who are your innovators? You have your the 49ers, you have Kyle Shanahan, you have the Miami guy, you have Mike McDaniels, and as I mentioned, you have Sean McVay. You have your younger offensive guys who are also just as effective as these motivational guys, but they are doing it in different facets and they have different ways of going about it. I do not believe that Frank Reich is an innovator, nor do I believe that he is a motivator, but I believe that Thomas Brown, being and coming from that Sean McVay tree and being exposed to all the ways that they did it over there in LA, working in the same room as Matt Stafford, like I said, and all the other brilliant minds that were on that staff, we're doing nothing but holding this offense back by just continuing to run this archaic ass scheme, these archaic ass schemes, run these archaic ass plays, because our old ass coach refuses to hand the reins over to a younger, possibly more, potentially better offensive play caller, and that is going to continue to irk me, man. So in conclusion on this point, Frank Reich's play calling as well as his overall coaching style is just dated, outdated, and we need to move on from it. I know they're not going to probably fire him this year, but the least he could do is try to revive this offense and give Bryce Young a chance in his rookie year. And how would he do that? In my opinion, that would be by allowing Thomas Brown to call the plays, man. So that's that. And now, I know what everybody that clicked on this video pretty much probably wanted to hear me talk about, and that is the fact that, whoa, we ain't even there yet. This is another thing. Before I even get to the decision, Chuba Hubbard versus Miles Sanders, Frank Reich goes out there, elects to run the ball on first and second down archaically, as I mentioned, just about every single time. But rather than use the runner that has been most effective for the Carolina Panthers, he elects to put the guy out there that has been paid. So if you quickly want to look at the numbers that you see on the screen, you will see that Chuba Hubbard has outperformed Miles Sanders in terms of yards per carry, yards per reception, all of these things. He has just dominated him in so much less of a sample size that it is absolutely crazy. Chuba Hubbard is only 39 total yards rushing behind Miles Sanders, but he has 28 less attempts, which is just absolutely asinine because he had a game where he only had 4 or 5 carries. Frank Reich is electing to just say that because we paid this guy, because Scott Fitterer brought this guy in, because he played for Deuce Staley in the past, we hope we can get this out of Miles Sanders. Is some shit, man. Let Chuba play, and this right here proves it. 37 touches for 176 yards, for Chuba Hubbard versus 69 touches for only 239 yards. That's only 60 more. That's only 60 more yards on 32 more touches. That discrepancy cannot be ignored, and it's just yet another demerit on what I believe to be a shit coaching style of Frank Reich. But that was the last I wanted to say on that. All right, now I'm going to move into the part of the video that I'm pretty sure most of you all that clicked on this wanted to hear me talk about, and that is the fact that at this point in time, I'm officially ready to deem the fact that the Carolina Panthers did not hire Steve Wilks to be an absolute disaster. It was the wrong decision, and it was yet again another failure by David Tepper to the Carolinas. what Steve Wilks was able to provide for this team down the back stretch of the year last year is just something that is almost priceless to have been there to experience. I saw the rejuvenation of the fan base. I saw the rejuvenation of the communication and the involvement of former players with the team. I heard one of the coldest slogans that I don't know why we didn't just keep this year in protect the bank. Like that's one of the best trademark things that I've heard in a long time. What Steve Wilks was able to do for this team, the infusion of the heart and soul that he was able to provide to this team is completely unmatched, and there's no reason in hell why David Tepper didn't choose to keep him around and build upon what he had established in those 12 games that he coached last year. Now, Steve Wilks is a motivator by heart. He would be, in my opinion, more in line with a Mike Tomlin, with a Dan Campbell. But what comes along with that is what we fear that Frank Reich is losing right now, and that is the buy-in of the players. At no point last year at no point last year did you hear of any players talking ill about Steve Wilks, and even lasting into the offseason when this hire was still up in the air. Whenever a player, especially a defensive player, was asked their opinion about who should be hired, each and every one of them showed a glowing endorsement for Steve Wilks, showing that he had the ear of the locker room. He had everybody believing in him. He was the leader. He was the absolute general of that locker room. So why mess with that continuity when you already have a young locker room? When you've already been lacking success in the past, where you haven't had any consistent display of dominance, any consistent play of any consistency of winning, why would you want to take the one thing that the team has, and that is motivation? Why would you want to take that away from the team? And that is just yet again another dumbass move by David Tepper, because that is exactly what Steve Wilks represented. Now, most people, when it came to this debate of, it's Frank Reich he's just better than Steve Wilks when it comes to resume this, resume that, I want to remind people, or just inform people that didn't know, that only 8 of the 32 coaches, that is 25% of the 32 coaches in the NFL right now, had any NFL playing experience whatsoever. So that is not a prerequisite for being an effective or good coach in any way, shape, or form. So to be fair, both of these guys' NFL coaching experience started back in 2006, but Steve Wilks had been coaching football on the collegiate level for 11 years prior to that. He had coached D3, D2, D1, all the way up to Power 5 football before he got to the NFL and went to the Bears as a defensive backs coach. In 2006, all the way up through 2008, Frank Reich was simply an assistant and an intern for the Indianapolis Colts. Steve Wilks by that point had been there, done that. So when you're talking about apples to apples, and we want to talk about resumes, Steve Wilks goes back a lot further than Frank Reich. And then everybody's gonna say, but the Super Bowl. Frank Reich is on record himself saying that Doug Peterson was the one that called plays for that Super Bowl. Frank Reich was literally just there. That's part of the reason why he is unfortunately doing that shit to Thomas Brown right now. But if you can point to me one player that had their development, and they attribute their development and their level of play, the stardom that they were able to reach solely to being coached by Frank Reich, I would like to hear who that player was. But because when it comes to Steve Wilks, when he first became the defensive coordinator for my Carolina Panthers, I believe that was the year that we drafted a future Hall of Famer named Luke Kuechly, who then became the Rookie of the Year, went on to win multiple Defensive Players of the Year, and attributes a lot of that to Steve Wilks. So Steve Wilks has worked with legends. Not only he's worked with Thomas Davis. He was around when Beeson was still around. He developed Josh Norman. He's done all of these different things. So let's not just talk about the fact that Frank Reich happened to be on a staff that played good one time. and use that as a reason to say that he was a better hire or had a better resume or was better for the job than Steve Wilks, because that's absolute bullshit. Steve Wilks was absolutely fucked over in his opportunity to be a head coach, drafted the worst quarterback in the first year that year, and then was fired because they wanted to bring in a young hotshot coach. Frank Reich had success in his first year because he inherited a future Hall of Famer and never made the playoffs again unless he had yet another future Hall of Famer when he got Phillip Rivers. Other than that, he missed the playoffs completely. So if we're talking about apples to apples, don't forget to talk about context when you talk about context, man. So as I said, the entire locker room had endorsed Steve Wilks. The fan base had endorsed Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks had turned this team around. We had traded the star player and became a better team offensively, while Steve Wilks is known as being a defensive coach. We had Ben McAdoo as the offensive coordinator, and we were still able to produce points. There was no reason under the sun for Steve Wilks to no longer be the coach of this team. And at this point in time, I know it may be a short time into the season. I don't give a damn. I'm here to tell you that this was absolutely the wrong decision, and David Tepper and them fucked up again. So those are my thoughts on the first 4 games essentially. And we could have got our asses whooped with Steve Wilks. They could have hired me and we could have went 0-4. So I don't want to hear no like right defenders, and I don't want to hear none of your toxic optimism. Like, fuck all that. We have been getting our asses spanked. We have not looked good, and I don't care to hear otherwise. I've been as objective as possible. I always have been. But at this point, I'm fed up with it, man. What do you all think about this topic, man? How are you feeling about Frank Reich at this current time? Did you expect for the team to look a little bit better than this? Are you like me, and did you fall for the preseason or like the preseason hype? All of that good stuff, man. Whatever you think, be sure to leave your comments down in the comment section, and I will be sure to get with you then. But until next time, I am Jamario Rashad. This is the way I see it, and I'm out. Peace.